drafting part, and it is our guidelines answers. So let's go one by one. Here the question is that limited judicial control over delegated legislation can be exercised by the courts. Now we have to discuss with the case law. So here the question is that judicial control over delegated legislature can be exercised at the following two levels. What all are the levels they are talking about? The delegation may be challenged as unconstitutional if that is delegation can be challenged in the court of law as being unconstitutional, excessive or arbitrary. Now the statutory power has been improperly exercised. So in two levels this judicial control over the legislature can be exercised. Now that the delegation has to be maybe challenged as unconstitutional, that is the delegation can be challenged in any court of law as being unconstitutional, and also there is excessive or arbitrary. Now the statutory power has been improperly exercised. Now we have the limitations of delegated legislation out of Article 13, Subarticle 3 and A of the Constitution. Now delegated legislation should not be infringe any provision, that is basic structure. There is a basic structure, so that has not to be infringe this provision. That is decided in the Keshwananda Bharati case, which is a famous and renowned case in 1973, or even the philosophy has been described in the preamble of the Constitution's means to philosophy described hai preamble ke according. Now the delegated legislation should not infringe any fundamental right also, even the procedure must confirm such right. Now the delegated legislation should be within the limit laid down in the statute. Also the validity of the rules can be described at this stage in two ways. First, they run counter to the provision of the act and they have been made in excess of the authorities delegated by the legislature. Now here is the substance of rules and regulation impugned has to be looked into, and not the procedural requirement of the rule making that may be prescribed in the statute. Now it is later looked into procedural ultra vires rules. Now the High Court and Supreme Court have struck down defective delegated legislation rules and time again. Now we have another question, that why it is important, why the knowledge about the rules of drafting, pleading, conveyancing important in corporate affairs. We know that importance of the drafting and conveyancing for a company executive could be well understood, as the company has to understand various types of agreements with different parties and they have to execute different types of documents in favor of its clients, banks, FI, employees and other constituents. Now the importance of the knowledge about drafting and conveyancing of the corporate executive has been felt particularly for the three reasons. Basically for obtaining legal consultation, also for carrying out documentation departmentally, for interpretation of the document. Now with the knowledge of the drafting and conveyancing, there could be better interaction by the corporate executive while seeking legal advice from the legal experts with reference to the matter to be incorporated in the document, that is to be decided upon the coverage and laying down rights and obligation of the parties therein, and robust knowledge of the rules of drafting assist in better communication, extracts of more information arriving on workable solutions, and facilitates settlement of draft documents, engrossment and execution thereof. Now also the knowledge of drafting conveyancing for the corporate executive is also essential for doing departmental wise documentation. Also an executive can make a better document with all facts, पता हैं, judging of the elements है, importance of all aspects, and then definitely he could prepare a better document. Now the number of the documents that are required to be studied and interpreted by the corporate executive in India in the absence of any legislation on conveyancing means there is no such legislation on conveyancing in India. So it will become imperative to have knowledge about the important rules of law of interpretation. So it has to be put right language in the document and also give appropriate meaning to the words and phrases used therein, and the incorporated the will and intention of the parties to the document. Now we have another question. That question is, corporate decision making process has to be collective as per the law. means that has to be collective. Now the company is an artificial judicial person, we know, with perpetual succession, having a distinct entity, capable entering into contract. Now through the company is a bestowed with the characteristics of separate legal entity and but cannot take decision on its own. Okay, it is capable of being acting in its own name but entering into contract, and it is capable for owning and holding property in its own name, sue others and be sued by others in its name. Despite all this power, since it is not a natural person, it expresses it well or takes its decision through natural person, that is the directors and managers. So collectively, which we know that resolutions are validly held meeting. So resolutions that has to be validly held meeting, that is to be considered for the company part. Now in case Re-Associated Color Laboratories Limited, here a meeting has been defined as coming together of two or more persons face to face so as to be in each other presence for the company. There are two collective bodies in the company which take decision through resolution. Who? The BOD, who manage, control and direct the business of the company. Also general body of members who ultimately owns the company. Now such decisions pertain to various corporate activities and management of the company. Thus corporate decision making process has to be collective as laid down in the law. Okay, not collective hona chahiye. It's not like one person is taking all the decision. Now what we need to check out, another question is that write down the required important practical aspects while drafting agenda and notes thereon. तो ड्राफ्टिंग के डू एंड डोट्स लिखने हैं हमें इसमें. Okay, let's go into this. That following are the important aspects while drafting agenda and notes thereon. While preparing agenda and notes thereon, good drafting is so important. Of non-routine items on the agenda have to be written and with special care. Okay, employing not only good drafting skills but also an understanding of commercial considerations and the business environment. Now the following points need to be focused for drafting agenda and notes on this. Now they divide the agenda into two parts. What all are the parts they are talking about? First part, that is containing usual or routine items, and the second part containing other items which can be further be bifurcated as item for approval and item for information and noting. For each item of the agenda, an explanatory note should be provided. Now the explanatory note should be sufficient details of the proposal, including the proposed resolution, if any, also the reference to the provision of the Companies Act and other applicable laws. Now the MOA, AOA and other relevant document, decision to the previous board, general meeting has been necessary. Now the explanatory note may be drafted under the following heads. What all are the heads? That the background, proposal with the recommendation of the management, provision of the law, decision to be taken and interest if any of the director. Also, as a good governance practice, the agenda item should be initiated by the concerned department, head of the department, another authorized person and approved by the competent authority as may be decided by the board. Now the company secretary should refer to the agenda of the previous meetings to see whether any items has been deferred and should consider whether such items to be included for the decision in ensuring meeting. Now the company secretary should also refer to the minutes of the meeting that is held during the corresponding period for the previous year to see whether there are any recurring periodic items, interim final dividend, quarterly results, and company secretary should also finalize the agenda in consultation with the chairman or any substance managing director नहीं है तो whole time director. Now note on the policies matters should present clear-cut issues in order to facilitate due deliberations and precise decision in the meeting. Now the company should keep, in addition to the records of matters to be discussed, separate folder of each correspondence, notes, documents which need to be dealt with the meeting at the preparing the agenda. Now the company secretary should refer to these folders to ensure that all items which are required the decision of the BOD are included in the agenda. Now separate agenda items should be given for items which are brought forward for discussion for the previous meeting rather than placing them under the omnibus agenda items. Now a few extra copies of the agenda should always be kept available at the meeting. So we have discussed this question, that is the question number D, that while we are doing the drafting agenda and notes, these things we need to consider. Okay, now the question is name forms where the company secretary in practice can appear as authorized representative. Oh, it's very easy question. We know NCLT, TRAI, SAT, CCI, Competition Commission of India, so and other various quasi judicial bodies and some of the tribunals where SEBI में भी हो सकता है. SEBI में कौन also भी appear, SEBI नहीं mention किया इन्होंने. These are the okay, बाद में elaborate किया हुआ है. Okay, now we are checking out company secretary में under section A section do not we need to write. Now the to write to legal we can also 432 के according Companies Act में dealing with the right to legal representative and passage of the applicant or applicant may either appear in person or authorize one or more chartered accountant, company secretary, cost accountant or legal practitioner or any officer present in this case for the tribunal, appellate tribunal the case may be. TRAI के according 17 है. TRAI के according authorized company secretary to present before TRAI and also the appellate tribunal. And in case of a SEBI, SEBI के केस में as per 15V permits, ठीक है, practicing company secretary, chartered accountant, cost accountant, legal practitioner or its officer presents his case before SAT और SAT के अंदर IRDA आ जाता है. IRDA की भी जो appellate authority है that is a SAT also. Now CCI के according there is a 35 section 35 you need to remember. Company secretary in person in practice can appear before CCI. Okay, so CCI के लिए 35, TRAI के लिए 17. Okay, and for SEBI it is 15V. So under Real Estate Regulation and Development Act, so as per Real Estate Regulation and Development Act, that is 56, company secretary holding certificate of practice can appear before appellate tribunal of regulatory authority or adjudicating authority on behalf of the applicant or appellant as the case may be. Now we have another question. That question is, we need to summarize standards that is applicable to preparation of an opinion. Means an opinion need to be paper and we need to summarize the standards that are applicable and also the common purpose opinion कैसे देना है basically. So standards applicable for preparation of an opinion. General case में a lawyer is expected to be well informed to exercise such skills. Prudence, diligence as a lawyer is an ordinary skills and capacity commonly process and exercise and possess in performance of the task which they undertake. Now when the matter falls under the recognized area of legal specialty such as tax, securities law, it is advisable to take this assignment only it is fall when if it is fall under the competence of the professional. Means अगर professional की requirement है then we need to take advice from that expert. Now the customary practice that is an opinion should devote the time devote होना चाहिए. It's not like in hurry. A need to interpret and apply legal principles relating to the situation at hand and also ascertain through appropriate inquiry certificates of officers of the company and the facts that underlie the opinion and identify areas of significant uncertainty if any. Now in the interpretation and application of the legal principles in certain cases, opinion givers may conclude that it is necessary to conduct research with respect to particular legal principles or to conduct an investigation of the underlying facts relevant to the opinion. Now there is a fraudulent or misleading opinion. So if in case of an opinion giver may be liable for an opinion that constitute fraudulent and misrepresentation, now the lawyer owes a duty to non-clients to refrain from fraudulent misrepresentation. It is generally understood that regardless of compliance with the other standards and even if an opinion is technically correct, a lawyer should not render an opinion that the lawyer recognized would be misleading to the opinion recipient. Now ethical issues that are relating to the provision of opinions to non-clients, a lawyer delivering an opinion letter to a non-client should also consider ethical practice. For example, rendering an opinion to a non-client may conflict with the opinion ethical giver's ethical obligation to maintain the confidence to his client. Means we need to maintain the confidence, ये नहीं कि किसी और को बता दे उसका opinion. Now he should give decline to the legal opinion in such case. Some of the common purposes for which legal opinion are sought are as follows. Lawfulness of an action. When one wants to know if an action is lawful And lawful legal consequences, sometimes a party entering into a transaction obtains legal opinion to ascertain if the action will lead to desired legal consequences. Also answer question when the client wants professional guidance in that area. Now regulatory requirement, sometimes legal opinion has to be sought to be because it is mandatory by the law. Now the compliance, that is, it can be sought to meet the compliance requirement. Protective shield, clients may sometimes desire the protection from an expert legal opinion. Okay, now it is designed to mislead. Sometimes promoters of the unscrupulous schemes obtain as many as opinion from the different experts as is possible and use the one which is favorable to their scheme of the things. And also to satisfy the contractual requirement, sometimes a clause in commercial contract require the opinion of an expert. Also the due diligence, lawyers and clients often cite due diligence as a principal reason for requesting. So these are the things which we need to consider while we are giving any opinion. Now a partnership firm and a HUF and a minor wants to be a partner of another partnership firm. Decide the possibility of the same. We know that minor can be a partner, but minor can be a partner in case of profit only, but minor cannot get loss. So the word person in section 4 of the Indian Partnership Act contemplated only natural and legal person. Partnership relation is one of the contractual nature, we know. Therefore, such persons are competent to contract and enter into partnership firm. A firm or a HUF family is not a legal person. Means a firm and a HUF is not a legal person, cannot enter into partnership with any person. When the karta of a joint family enters into a partnership with strangers, the other members of the family do not ipso facto become it's a Latin word, ipso facto become the partners. There was a case held, that is a Bhagat case held in such thing in 1956. Further, it cannot be noted that it's to be noted that two partnership firms cannot enter into partnership as such, but its partners can certainly form a new partnership. So there is a minor cannot be a partner in a partnership firm, but the consent of all partners, he can be admitted to the benefit of the partnerships as per section 30 of the Indian Partnership Act, and he is also entitled to share the profits, and his shares is liable to act or the act of the firm, but he is not personally liable for all the losses. So he cannot be made liable for the losses of the firm. So within the 6 months of attaining majority, he has to give a written confirmation that he has become the partner. He has to show his willingness to the organization. He has to need to show the willingness to the partnership firm that he has attained majority and he wants to become a partner of that firm. So now we have another question, that is arbitration agreement. So arbitration agreement, that is, in order to solve certain disputes among the partners, arbitrator has been appointed, but there is no arbitration clause in the partnership deed except only communication through electronic means among the partners relating appointments of arbitrator. One partner challenges the appointment of arbitrator. We need to decide this case. Decide this question. There is arbitration agreement. Arbitration agreement, we know that under the Arbitration and Conciliation Act 1996, it basically means that an agreement by the parties to submit the arbitration to certain dispute which have arisen or which may give rise between them in respect of defined legal relationship, whether contractual or not. It may be in the form of arbitration clause in a contract or in the form of the separate agreement. It has to be in writing, means it is not to be oral, it has to be in the writing, and if it is in the writing, it is contained in a document signed by the parties or in an exchange of letters, telegrams or other means of telecommunication, including communication through electronic means, which provide a record of the agreement, or in exchange of statement of claims and defense in which existence of agreement is alleged by one party and not denied by other. Now, the appointment of arbitrator in the question cannot be challenged by partner. Means, if the appointment of arbitrator is in the question, that it cannot be challenged by the partner. And we have another question that is related to the FIR. FIR, we need to write it here to concern name of the police station. Then sir, we need to give the, this is to inform you that मेरे इसमें साइकिल चोरी का लिख दिया, कुछ भी they can write. Then faithfully, then your name आ गया. इसके बाद what has happened, I think FIR ही पूछा था ना उन्होंने क्वेश्चन में. Let me check. Sample FIR assume fact. Also, guidance and credibility of the information is not condition precedent to. Okay, so something different question. We'll discuss now the memorandum of mortgage by deposit of title deeds. Means memorandum of mortgage by deposit of title deeds. We'll discuss this question now. So this question is basically here the memorandum. Okay, it is like drafting. Okay, that part is related to the drafting. Then deed assignment share की करनी है. Then deed altering conditions and lease करनी है. तो assignment का सारा क्वेश्चन ड्राफ्टिंग का है. तो ड्राफ्टिंग पोर्शन यू नीड टू practice. Now this question is so easy. Two types of hire purchase agreement need to explain. Hire purchase agreement that we know when the owner is unwillingly to approach the purchaser of the goods to recover the balance of the price and the financier who pays the balance. I think we need to discuss in another video. Thank you.